Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Let's Get Printing. I'm your host, Zack, Dewhurst, the Business Development Manager at DecoNetwork. Today's topic is all about heat transfer vinyl, also known as HTV, and we have the number one manufacturer of this product, Siser, here to talk with us, the one and only Chad Poole. Chad is a father of three, an avid boater, and before he got into HTV, he majored in music recording in college. So Chad has a fun background, has that wide range of skill and knowledge, and he's here to share that knowledge when it comes to where HTV is going, as there's been a lot of big disruptors in the industry, this big one known as DTF, and it's impacted HTV. And there's this misconception that HTV is dead. There's also the misconception that DTG is dead. No decoration process is dead. It's just found its place in the industry. And that's what today's conversation is all about. All of these different special effects that HTV can accomplish and when you should use them that digital printing processes and even screen printing either can't do or it's a lot more difficult than if we used HTV. Before we kick it off, let's talk about our awesome sponsor, the one and only DecoNetwork, the all-in-one shop management software that features both a front-end website, the ability to provide websites to your customers, and third, a back-end order management system where all those orders flow into, where you can also create quotes from scratch. You can integrate with suppliers so you can raise purchase orders and push them straight to the supplier. You can assign jobs, outsource jobs, everything you need in one system to manage your custom decoration business. Visit DecoNetwork.com today to do a demo, and you'll see for yourself why DecoNetwork is the game-changing shop management software you have to be using in your decoration business. With that said, let's get back to the show. How's it going, Chad?
Good. How are you?
Good. Excited to talk about HTV and the misconception that it's going away, because it's not. I mean, everybody thinks these digital processes are, killing these old ways of decorating product, and it's just not the case. It's just finding a new, niche in our industry, and it's pivoting. So yeah, Chad, tell us a little bit about Siser and what the company's all about, what products you guys offer, and everything under the sun.
For sure. So thanks first and foremost for having us. We Siser North America, we have been around, we started in Vicenza, Italy, and then we moved over here, but since about the 70s, 73. And essentially we're homegrown. Not a huge operation they have over here. We're actually pretty thin, but we are the world's number one manufacturer of heat transfer vinyl. So everything gets made in Vicenza, Italy, to where it comes to Michigan, and then we convert it down into different sizes and widths, and then we disperse it amongst our distribution network, who ultimately carries the product for the public. So we don't sell direct. But that said, we have the big leg up of being a manufacturer, actually, because we control our own destiny. So anything that has the Siser logo on it or says Siser, if you are an end user, you can be rest assured that we've gone through vigorous testing, and it will never fail you as long as you use the proper application instructions, of course. But so it's really more of we have a very loyal following, and I attribute that to the fact that we do manufacture our products. And at the end of the day, Zach, if you're decorating for somebody, they really don't care what type of materials or products or technologies that you're using. They just want a proper product and not something that's going to peel or crack or fade. And that's what you get when you use Siser products. And we're very proud of that, and we'd like to honor our community and kind of give back that way as well. So,
yeah, something you kind of brought up there is, every decoration process, I've heard somebody bash it at one point or another. So everybody, I've heard a lot of bashing at DTF, DTG, screen printing. Any process can be done poorly or well from a user standpoint, but it's also the consumable itself that we're using. HTV, it seemed like at least when I was getting started in the industry 15 years ago, the first batch of stuff, it just wasn't the quality it is today, or at least what I bought from whoever. I don't know what brand, but it was harder to weed. It seemed like it was a little bit less durable than a lot of other processes. And it seems like in the past 10 years, HTV became one of the most reliable processes in a shop. I mean, it's probably one of the most durable when done correctly. And there's a lot of different types to be used in different applications. Yes, there are special effects, which is what we're really going to dive in today. But, there's a reason why this vinyl is suggested to be used on jerseys and this one is suggested to be used on T-shirts. Can you kind of make it a little universal? Yeah. But Siser really has done the R&D to find the best product for that specific type of application. And you can, like you said, you have that large network of dealers, and a lot of them are rebranding the vinyl as well, aren't they? They play it off, hey, this is ours, but it's really Siser.
There are a few we've caught out there that tend to do that, but ultimately our value and our brand name holds a lot more weight. Even the Silhouette and Cricut users, and this is not to say their products are inferior, but most of that craft community will actually, while they may use a Cricut or Silhouette, they actually prefer our vinyl. So yeah, there's definitely, we have an abundance of materials, probably too many, but there is a rhyme and reason for each one that we have, and yeah, we're pretty proud of the fact it has come a long way. I mean, really, the inception of vinyl, where really the bread and butter of it and the start of it was names and numbers. And that was really just because screen printing a roster was very, very labor intensive. There wasn't a lot of margin in that because you have to do different numbers, you have to do different letters, all these different things, and that's where vinyl became a really good substitute for doing that, and also creating incredible margins for end users. Since then, as you had mentioned, we've come a long way. So now we've got different types of vinyls for different applications, whether it be nylon or, we've got different effects, a multitude of different materials that you can layer. We have, ones that are more specific to lower heat, right? So, I always try to mention to folks that heat transfer is not necessarily just T-shirts, right? It's really anything with a surface area that you can apply something to. So, really anything that's flat and has some sort of fabric to it, you can heat apply stuff to. So, koozies, hats, you name, purses. I mean, shoes. Shoes are so popular right now. And what's great is, at least for us, is that people are very individualized now. As before, growing up, I just wanted a little polo guy on my shirt. But now people may want that, but they want their own twist on it. So they want, their name or even application areas on garments are becoming unique. And like I mentioned with the shoes. So there is a rhyme and reason for each one of our materials, just like the technologies you mentioned, right? There's screen printing is the oldest process there is, and it's never going to go away, right? You've got DTG, you've got DTF, you've got sublimation. I mean, you've got all these different technologies, and there is a rhyme and reason for each one. That said, most people that get into this industry do tend to start out with a vinyl cutter and vinyl, just because of the low entry level, low price point. But now what we're figuring, and what we're not necessarily combating, but with the rave of DTF, it has taken a little bit of a turn on heat transfer vinyl, but we've actually grown substantially in the past 6 months here with certain materials, and we think that it's because DTF is, I don't want to say it's still very, very trending, and it's a great, the idea is fantastic, but there's certain things you can't achieve with that you can with our products.
Yeah, and in a weird way, it's like DTF has made transfers more popular than ever. We often, customers don't often like the word transfer because, again, there's a lot of bad application potentially out there of transfers. And yeah, I mean, it can be done poorly. You can get a bad taste in your mouth for that type of product. And you kind of bring up the crafting market. Let's talk about that because, and this was happening pre-COVID, pre-DTF. We started seeing a big swing in the industry of the Cricut mom. I mean, the Cricut mom market, it seemed everybody was going on YouTube making some videos, and they were making, just the hobby person, more popular. And Chad, I completely agree with you. When I started, I bought a heat press, I bought a vinyl cutter. That's it. That's how most of us start before we start diving into bigger equipment. So how much do you think, the industry has grown? If we look at the number of people who decorate shirts, what percentage might you think are the crafter market these days? If you had to take a wild guess, because I bet it's a way higher percentage than it was 15 years ago. Do you agree?
Yeah, I definitely would agree with that. 15, 20 years ago, when people thought of decoration for garment or apparel, it was these big wide format cutters or print cut systems or screen printing, anything like that. As to where now we've seen a lot of trends with equipment such as Cricut or Silhouette, or even our venture here, the Juliet, more accessible 24-inch, 12-inch units that people can just bring into their homes or even go on site with. There used to be a big trend in on-demand customization. So if you had a screen printed transfer, or even if you pre-screen printed let's say it's a Little League baseball tournament and it's the finals, you may have the front already done, but people could literally take these smaller units and pre-cut the name, and they want their name and number in the back, or mom wants her son's name, or whatever that may be. But as far as the craft community, HTV is definitely the number one go-to, because it's accessible, and I'll be honest with you, a lot of those folks are a lot more creative than I am. That being said, social media has helped with that, but I can't disagree that COVID was a big time for us. While it was kind of damning for others, it was really good business for us, because people were getting laid off and people were getting stimulus checks, and what do you do, right? People, they're kind of freaking out a little bit. For a small investment, you can get a vinyl cutter and some vinyl and a heat press, and you can start making actually a lot of lucrative dollars. So, to answer your question in a nutshell, I would say that from the craft market, heat transfer vinyl is probably 90% of it.
Wow. And from that market, a lot of them are trying to go for that true customization, that one-off capability, right? Like when somebody goes to sell a t-shirt for $80, to me, it's hard to do that with just a screen printer at DTF or at DTG. Yep. You're doing some type of specialty water-based discharge, or you're doing some sequins or other type of mixed media to create that extra value. Do you kind of see that as becoming a trend as well, those higher-end one-offs?
1,000%. It's funny because 5-10 years ago, people didn't want to feel a thing. When we talk about the hand or a feel, a touch of a garment, they wanted the thinnest thing possible. You didn't want to. You didn't like vinyl. You didn't. Everybody. That's where screen print was huge. But over time, that would crack and fade. Right now, you've got DTF, which is an alternative if you have a heat press at home and don't have equipment, or if you get a job for 500 logos with 8 different colors, then of course that's a great route to supplement transfers and outsource for that. But most of the time, if it's 1 or 2 colors, we have vinyls that can create effects that these other technologies cannot, and that's where it does come into play with the boutiques and stuff like that. If I just put Easy Weed on a sweatshirt versus me putting like a strip flock or something with a nice hand or a feel, or a puff is very popular with different finishes and stuff like that. That's where people will actually go the extra mile and pay the extra dollar, and it really doesn't cost much more to make it. So that's where the huge benefit. And even like I had mentioned before with the application methods and areas, if you have a screen printed front Little League shirt, if you put the number on the sleeve here or on the back of the hood, and you do it with like a brick or some sort of specialty effect that we have, you're just creating that retail perception. So you can charge a lot more money for it, and it doesn't cost much at all to make it. So,
yeah, and that's what I'm starting to see with more, shirt orders and like hats and so forth, where some parts of that product are more of a hassle to decorate than others, such as the very back of a hat or the sleeve of a shirt. That's a pain to screen print compared to the front. So what I'm seeing more is, okay, I'll screen print the front, but I'm going to use a transfer here. Or I'll embroider the front, I'll use a patch in the back. So it's, and I agree with you completely, where we've learned from the customer. 10, 15 years ago, discharge, water-based, was getting huge, DTG, everything's just no hand. But then customers started complaining more about the quality and the cracking and so forth. And I think you're right. I think the customer would rather feel a brick, know that it looks perfect and it's going to be durable. It's almost like we stress about the hand so much more. Obviously, there's some customers, but most of the time, the decorator's going to worry about it more than the end consumer.
And that's with anything too, right? I mean, we're if you're in this industry, you are going to be your own worst critic.
Oh, yeah.
100%. That's why I always say the 3 feet rule, right? So you put your arm out at length. That's where you're viewing a shirt. You're not coming up to here with it. So the imperfections that we beat ourselves up about, 98% of the time, your customer is not going to notice the difference. But yeah, I would agree with you completely. And like I said, the different technologies, they're great. I mean, the thing with heat transfer vinyl, and I don't want to say it's an end all be all, because obviously, like I mentioned before, if you get a large order, it's a lot to weed. It's a lot of labor. If you've got different colors, then you're having to buy different rolls and stuff like that. So there is times to outsource and use different technologies. But as you had mentioned, if you use it in conjunction with that, you're just creating that different perception and the value. But at the same time, heat transfer vinyl, it's really versatile as to where, like DTG, when that first came out, it was all the rage, like you had mentioned, but you were limited to 100% ring spun cotton. And then they've gotten a little bit better now to where they can do cotton poly blends, but you've got to pre-treat a garment. You've got to heat press that. Then you've got to put your white ink base down. White ink is the viscosity is very thick, so you're dealing with clogged nozzles sometimes, and it's a lot of money, white ink typically too. There's a lot more to that process to where you're kind of limited on your runs. So you might be able to get 50 shirts done in a day, but if somebody came in and wanted 200 shirts and they were going to pay more money, top dollar, well, you're pot committed to that other one. As for with vinyl, you can be cutting as it cuts, cut off a chunk, start weeding, and just increase that workflow and that labor in overall workability.
I seriously think there's a market for those who sell DTF transfers. If they have the right cutting setup and they were a Siser dealer, they would start offering cut vinyl as a transfer service, just like DTF, because there's a market there, and we are so used to outsourcing transfers again. You know what I mean? Like there's a demand for it where, hey, all I want to have to do is do this, or if I just have to weed, hey, I know operating a cutter isn't hard, but again, we've been spoiled. Wait, this roller transfer comes, I cut it, I apply it. I seriously think there's a demand for it for a lot of these special effects that are often, you tell me, they're often more difficult to cut because of their thickness and so forth. Or, again, you've got to follow the directions. This is the type of blade, the angle, make sure it's sharp, cut it at the right speed. There's a handful of variables just like every decoration process, but HTV has to be the easiest one to learn how to do. And that's why, you mentioned a lot of crafters, most of us start there. It's not intimidating. It's not drastically hard. the hardest thing to fathom initially is what a vector is. And we got to cut that. But I know also Siser has their own, cutting software to make it even that much easier, which with a lot of equipment, if it has a computer involved, the software will make or break a lot of what goes on. DTF, everybody's like, what printer would you buy? Which printer? It's the color profiling and the rip. That's probably even more important than the dang printer. I mean, the consumables are important, but the other stuff, you got to do it. So tell us a little bit about Siser software. And you have 2 cutters. So just everyone knows, GraphTech and Roland. Those are kind of the 2 bigger cutting companies. They've been around for a long time. They're not cheap, though. I mean, you're looking at around a couple grand for a cutter. So, tell us a little bit about Cut Studio and the Romeo and Juliet cutters.
Yep. So, I usually call them 4 main players, but for an entry level or a crafter, I say that with air
Cricut.
You've got a Cricut and Silhouette, right? And then for a pro level type of cutter, if you're doing more production and you're cranking stuff out, typically that's where you have a Roland or a GraphTech. We never envisioned ourselves in getting in the equipment market. It's just not something that we did, but we did see an opportunity, once again, kind of to give back and create something very unique, because what we've done is we've kind of developed the hybrid between the two. Whether you're a Cricut or Silhouette user that is doing a little bit more business, or maybe the machines get a little bit older and you want to upgrade, this is the perfect opportunity for you. Or if you are looking to get into the business and you've already known that you have some volume coming, you can get a Romeo, which is our 24-inch unit, for less than half the price of a GraphTech or GraphTech or Roland, excuse me. And really what the difference is our machine, the pinch rollers move forward. And with the Cricuts and Silhouettes, typically they would move backwards and you would place a sheet on a mat. Since ours move towards yourself or forward, we have 3 options. You can use a mat. You can go matless and just use a regular sheet. You don't have to cut on the mat. Or you can use a roll. So you can do a 5-yard roll if you've got, the volume that dictates that. They're about 3 times faster than a Cricut or Silhouette. They're not nearly as noisy. They're very quiet. And between you and I, Zack, I've used every cut software that's out there. I've used, every rip software that's out there. Whether we're talking about, GraphTech Studio or Cut Studio, and then you've got, all these different subsidiaries. You've got ErgoSoft, you've got Silhouette Studio, I think Cricut Maker. Anyways, long story short, when we were coming out with this thing, we explained all the features, how it's way faster. You can do a roll or a mat. It's all touch screen. It's Wi-Fi. It's Bluetooth capability. All the bells and whistles behind it, right? And I said, this all sounds fantastic, but if the software is lackluster, forget about all of it. And I can honestly say that our software, I prefer to use tenfold any day of the week over any of those other softwares. Even if you're working with a JPEG, for those that don't know what that is, let's call it, when you had mentioned vector earlier, but let's say it's a raster image where it's very pixelated, it's difficult to work with. Normally on those other softwares, or even GraphTech or Roland, you would have to use AI or Corel to bring that in and trace it, vectorize it, and then bring it into Cut Studio, which essentially, and I love my friends at Roland. You can see I'm very loyal to them back there, but essentially it's just a plugin. It's just driving it to the cutter, as to where ours you can design in. It has an auto vector tracing tool to where it'll automatically trace it, turn that logo into a vector. Not only that, but it'll automatically put a cut line on it. You have the option to put a bleed zone on it. You have the option to contour it. It is really the most intuitive software I've come across, and I mean, the software itself sells me. But in addition to that, the fact that we believe we price pointed these at a very, very, very inexpensive price point for the end user, makes all the world of difference. We have people out there that are running 3 or 4 crickets at a time, which it is not very efficient from a workflow perspective, but 3 crickets is 1 Juliet, right? So we've got the Juliet, which is the 12-inch, that retails for $399, and then we have the Romeo, which is the 24-inch, which retails for $699.
Yeah, again, they're about as affordable as you can get for a piece of equipment in our industry. Yep. Chad, we spoke a couple weeks ago at the Printing United Expo in Las Vegas. That's a show that seems to be on the rise in the industry. What did you think of that show and the overall energy there?
Yeah, we had a great show. That is one of the 2 shows that we exhibit at a year. We do Printing United and ISA. Traditionally, those are known more for high commercial, wide format type of sign shows, but we do fantastic at them. This just goes to show that even big screen printers are using our products in certain areas, and there's a lot of corporations that I can't necessarily mention. One, I believe we did expire on our NDA, but Victoria's Secret, their entire pink line is Easy Weed. I mean, we have worked with very, very high and reputable companies, and I'll just say, if you look at any kind of performance polo right now, or women's leggings, they all have this little thing on the sleeve there, and a lot of that may or may not be a material that we offer. So, we're working with high-end commercial companies like that. That's where we meet a lot of folks at Printing United and whatnot, but we had a fantastic turnout, and one of the best compliments we could have gotten came from a woman. I'm actually looking at her business card right now. Her name's Paula. Shout out to Paula at the Inks on me, but she was so appreciative of the fact that we weren't trying to launch something new. We weren't trying to reinvent the wheel. We weren't coming out with a new way to do transfers or, whatever. We were basically taking all of our materials, and similar to the hat you're wearing right there, and we were showing the fact that we have the only layerable strip flock in the industry. So not only are we doing layers, but we're also utilizing different materials in certain foregrounds in certain areas, and then even putting just a basic piece of mesh over top, you're creating a new texture. So she had mentioned, she said, you guys are doing so much with what you already have. It's so refreshing to see. And we just had a fantastic turnout with all the just different decoration methods. Not anything new, but just different ways to do things and apply things and catch that eye and make that light bulb go off. So we had a fantastic show, and we couldn't be prouder. I couldn't be prouder of the team we had there, and we can't wait for ISA to come around again.
Well,
and Printing United again.
At some of the effects I saw for some of the different hats, because after I came back to DecoNetwork's booth with this hat, the other guys were like, I got to go get something. Yeah. They're coming back with the Las Vegas upside down. And what I thought was really cool is you guys pressed it, with finishing. You were doing it with like, how did you get that effect, that look? You were guys telling me like just fishnet and all types of little effects. Here's what I saw. Siser was bringing the art to transfers back, because it's gotten to the point where we kind of feel like we're cheating when we're DTF heat pressing a transfer. It's like, this is too easy. Versus, again, kind of getting the art back into it. Because your diehard screen printers are, like, oh, I don't like that. But so HTV, so what the podcast we're talking about right now. So where is HTV making its way in our industry? So you brought up the crafters. We know that's how a lot of us start, as a crafter. So I never want to put them down. They are disruptors at times, but guess what? We all start somewhere, and it's not, you can't just play them off. And then you have these high-end retailers. It's kind of an interesting, obviously you have a lot in between. And that's why I find, Printing United, that's not a crafter conference at all. That is a big boy conference. Yeah. And a lot of again, those retail products, there's a reason why some of those sweatshirts are sold for $80, because it's just, it's a harder made to product. And what I love about the special effects, the ones that we're talking about, you can't digitally make. And then secondly, sometimes you can screen print it, but if you can, it's a pain. For example, you were just mentioning, sometimes we have the brick often is thought of as silicone in a way. I've screen printed silicone transfers before. It's a nightmare. You have to mix a catalyst. You have a very short shelf life. I mean, a lot of things are just not as easy versus vinyl. Hey, we know it works. We know that it's easy to apply. It's going to be durable. So why reinvent the wheel, as Paula said? Have there been that many new... I mean, you guys have come out with a lot of different special effects. And again, what makes them special is not only can I feel them, but I can see them. I mean, it's kind of hard on camera, but you can kind of tell this is not a flat, just digitally printed transfer I pressed. I mean, especially if you see it in person, it's that dimensional look. And then with the flock and the gray and the red, you could see the fuzziness and then feel it. So, yeah, how is that where you see the bigger market going towards with HTV?
Yeah, for sure. And dimension is definitely huge right now. For the past 3 months, our top 3 sellers have been brick, flock, and puff. And what do they all have in common? They all have a texture, they all have dimension, or they have that pop effect. We are seeing a huge uptick in that, and again, I attribute to the fact that DTF can't do that right now. But even some of our different materials, like our metal or our Easy Weed electric, some that have a reflectiveness or a shininess, or it just gives it that different look, that different pop. We're seeing that trend right now, and eventually, like you had mentioned with screen, DTF might get there with some of the metallics and stuff like that, but I know from my past experience in wide format that whenever you're dealing with ink and those type of finishes, or white ink or metallic ink, or even the substrate you're printing on, when you're talking about color profiles, how are you going to hit that red that you need for the high school? It becomes very, very problematic and not easy to work with. And even as a screen printer, if you did get that job and you were doing a silicone transfer, you need to justify that by volume, right? You're not going to just take 4 shirts and do those. And especially, if it's color dependent, if it's 5 colors and 4 shirts, you're losing money at that point, right? So it really is that's where the supplement is for HTV. Is just we're seeing a huge trend right now in any kind of texture, any kind of effect, and it's showing. Like I said, 5 years ago, people didn't want to feel anything. Now they want the thickest thing you could put on something. So, but yeah, that's really what we just tried to focus on is showing what we can do with what we already have. I do have to mention we did launch our newest material there, though, however, and that is called Pure HT, which we're very, very excited about. We had mentioned DTF and whatnot, and this is not in any way to bash DTF, but I can say, for a matter of fact, there are lawsuits going on right now. People are becoming a little bit more aware that if you don't have proper ventilation and you're not in the proper environment, the powder process isn't great for you, right? Because it's technically adhesive, it's glue. So if you've got all that going everywhere, and I'm hearing stories about glycol and stuff like that. So again, not to bash it, not to freak anybody out, but it should be properly ventilated. It's not something you want to throw in your basement and crank away necessarily. We're kind of taking the opposite approach of that, and we just launched a new product called Pure HT. So it's the world's first completely compostable heat transfer, meaning I can take it off the carrier, put it in the dirt, and 180 days it's gone.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and you'll also notice it's pure HT. It's not pure HTV because it's not vinyl. It's compostable. So on top of that, it being completely compostable for the environment, the liner is 100% recyclable. So we're not being political. We're not going in different avenues. But our message is if we can help the world a little bit and help recycle and help be a little bit more eco-conscious, why not take the extra step, right? So that we're really excited about this product, and it is incredibly soft. It's got a matte finish. The best part is how it weeds. We were talking about weeding earlier. I had a transfer that I cut. It was very intricate. Actually, it was this. There's a tree with roots and whatnot for those that can't see, but it was very small. And the road got to me, and I was on, traveling and kids or whatever. Life got away from me. Needless to say, I needed to apply that transfer. I came back about 3 weeks later, and typically over time with different, humidities and stuff like that, you might see areas lift and this and that. And you can literally just take one end and it will not break. It peels completely off. It weeds pretty similar to Easy Weed. I mean, it's incredibly easy to work with, and like I said, if we can help just a little bit and be a little bit more conscious. My boss Johan mentioned a great story. He's quite the storyteller, but he said, Chad, 10 years ago, if we were talking about organic food, it'd be about the 10-foot cap in a grocery store. Now it's almost half the grocery store.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think people are just thinking a little bit differently, and we want to give back and help in that manner too. So,
yeah, DTF is going to need to get on board, because it's the worst as far as just, not helping from a sustainability standpoint. You brought up a great point though. HTV, I don't care if it's a special effect, your Easy Weed, storage is important, Chad. I mean, if you want the lifespan to last and have that weed properly and so forth, what is the optimal conditions to be storing HTV?
Depends who you're talking to. As long as you're I'll put it this way: if you're down in Baton Rouge, or if you're in Florida and you have it in your garage, it's probably not going to last you as long as you would if you're here in Michigan and you're just in a room, just a regular room controlled environment. In general, we like to say about a year. If it's indoors and you're in a decent environment where you're not exposed to any elements, I mean, really a year and a half, almost up to 2, you should be okay. And
after that amount of time, or let's say you didn't store it as well, what would be the repercussions? Would it just weed poorly? Would it adhere
really
as well?
Yeah, it's really more on the workability of the product. The adhesive itself, which is underneath that liner, should maintain its integrity. But if you want to not bang your head against the table a million times because you're weeding something difficult, your best off is a year and under is probably the timeline we would give.
Okay. No, and it makes a lot of sense. That's why you need that network of distributors and
for sure.
So most shops buy it when they need it.
Yes.
More so than they stock up on it.
Yes. And that's, I always like to tell people too, if you get a job that has, my daughter's school just emailed me, so they're the Emmanuel Lancers, right? They've got blue and gray. If I know I'm going to be doing continuous work for them, I'm better off buying a 25-yard roll because I'm going to get that bulk discount. But if I get a one-off from one of the moms that works there, and she wants a burgundy Lancer logo, maybe that's when you look at, possibly purchasing a yard or 5-yard roll, because we don't want people to sit on inventory either, right? We understand that not all of this can be printed. It's mostly cut-only material that we carry. Mostly, I say, because we do have a great digital offering. But in that sense, we don't expect everybody to carry a whole ton of rolls and all different colors and whatnot. We really try to figure out what the application is, what the customer does, what type of garments they're decorating, or any type of substrate, I should say. And then from there, position them to what's going to work best for your everyday use. Here's some special effect materials that are taking off. And that's when we really just try to educate and bounce ideas off, and that's where the light bulbs go off. Oh, maybe if I put flock on the back of the neck or brick on the bottom of the sleeve here, in addition to what I'm already doing, that's where we see the benefit in it. But to answer your question, yes, we offer all of our materials in a variety of sizes from 12, 15, 20 inch down to a yard, 5 yard, 10, 25 yard rolls. So it's really up to the customer to vet out what they're going to use and how much they think they're going to use.
One thing you said a little bit ago, everybody wants something personalized. I'm a sports fan.
Yep.
One of the things that got me into this industry was I just saw in the early 90s, every baseball glove in the major leagues, it had the guy's name on it. All their shoes had their initial, their numbers and so forth. And it really I love this customization. And now as we're talking, it's like, I'll tell you what, next time I, do stuff for the baseball team, I'm just like, have your kids bring their gloves over. We'll do some brick and the script. And so I don't want to sew the glove. I'll tell you, I don't have any interest in doing that. Right. But again, that's how also far HTV has come from a durability standpoint, that I have complete confidence that it's not the, poorly applied 90s stuff that just wasn't, it's not the same that it is today. Would you have complete confidence taking a baseball glove and, using a material, put it on there? Don't make me look like an idiot, Chad.
No, I'm not going to. So, but this is a great way to have a conversation, because the first thing I would do is I would find out if you knew, or if there's a tag or something in there of what the material is, right? Is it 100% leather? Is it faux leather? What that is, right? Now knowing that it's leather, okay, is there any type of waterproofing on that, or is there any type of lycra or nylon? Because like you had mentioned earlier, we have specific products for nylon application purposes. Another thing that people may not know, but we have a product called Easy Weed Extra, and it has 3 colors. It's black, white, and Barcelona yellow. Don't ask me why I have the yellow. That said, to answer your question, if something was nylon and you wanted to put brick on it, could you? Yes, you could. What you would want to do is use that Easy Weed Extra as a base layer, and then you could heat apply on top of that. When we're talking about a baseball glove, there's some wear and tear there too, right? So They're constantly throwing and catching and doing these things. So that also tells me, okay, I want to make sure that I get a really good adhesion to that. So I would probably put an Easy Weed Extra underneath that. Another thing to think about when we're talking about these things is it being laundered. Baseball gloves aren't being laundered. So do you really need something that's, when we talk about nylon and adhesion, that usually falls off in post-wash. Yep. So if it's a umbrella or a tent or something like that, you're not going to have to worry about it as much if you're not washing it like we do our garments. But to answer your question, that's the variables that go into it, and that's what we're here for, right? And we have a great team over here. info@siserna.com with any of those questions. We are more than happy to help you with decoration methods, because that's kind of the fun stuff for us, right? It's like we can talk about vinyl all day, but like when you give us the curveball, no pun intended, that's fun. Is like, how do we get there? And yes, to answer your question, we can get there.
I wouldn't have thought to layer it the way you did, but it makes complete sense when you think about it. And there's a market for it. The customer is willing to pay a crazy amount for it these days. I always say I'm in the decoration service. I don't sell products, I sell a service.
Right.
Because I think that's what we're doing. It's just how, don't assume your customer only wants to do this. You got to put it in front of them. Hey, we could do this. This is what it cost. And I'm even going to argue, Chad, that, the quality of the heat press is definitely important. But I've seen a lot of these smaller handhelds, mini irons, things like that. So when we're talking about the sports team, because one thing you said earlier, if I can get it flat, and I'm kind of thinking to myself, because think about a baseball bag. Again, there's another thing. I'm just thinking of all these things in baseball that you could do. Yeah. You can't. There's a lot of different places that if I can just get that little iron on there, and not to put down, again, the cricket industry and whatnot, but as far as like handheld little mini irons and so forth, they have a really good one.
No,
and you want to put something on a shoe. I mean, like you said, it's hard to get on a press, but wow, it's cool.
And we have one in-house, and we use that for testing as well. And that just goes right back to, is it being laundered? Shoes typically aren't being laundered, right? So the pressure is not as important as something that you're throwing in the wash constantly. There's a lot of variables, and like I said, those are the fun ones we like to have fun with and talk about, because you had mentioned you provide a decoration service. We here at Siser, we don't sell direct, right? I couldn't sell you a roll right now if I wanted to, Zach, but we consider ourselves educators. So we're here to educate and listen to you guys and ask those questions just to put you in the best position for success. So that's really what we're kind of all about.
And I assume that's what some of these retail brands are coming to you and like, Chad, we want to do 10,000 or 100,000 of this. We got to know that this is going to be the best way. So, and I see like a lot. What I see with a lot of those too is a lot of color on color combinations, which I think is pretty cool. A lot of black on black, real popular, right? And just that 3-dimensional. So you've mentioned, and it makes total sense to me, what would be your most popular, your puff, your brick, and the flock. Because from a digital standpoint, even a screen print standpoint, not really in the game so much. What are some of the other special effects? Again, you've mentioned the extra for nylon.
Yep.
I know you have like an aurora, you have metallic glitter. Just give us a quick rundown of some of those other special effects.
Yeah, there's too many.
There's a lot.
We've got, we have I will say, one that I would like to touch on is our reflective is a fantastic product. Very easy to work with. It's very soft. Typically when you're working with any type of reflective, it's a great example. It depends on the circumstance, right? So is this for safety wear? Is this for construction services? Is this for EMS they have to meet certain things called ANSI certifications to where it needs to have a certain amount of glass beads within that reflectiveness to be able to be a safety, a non-hazard there. So we do quite a bit of volume as an alternative to that, because really the only thing that passes all of those ANSI certifications is 3M's reflective. And it is a fantastic product. It is very, very, very expensive. Very expensive.
Very expensive, yeah.
That said, that's why ours is a fantastic alternative at a quarter of the cost. But we also just launched 3 new colors in the reflective, which is pretty unique. And one of those being, it's called Rainbow Black. I was a little skeptical at first about as a man wearing this, but I did some shirts for my sister-in-law's boyfriend. I did his landscape company, so I did the reflective on the outside, and I did Easy Weed Electric is another material. That's what is on top of the Las Vegas that you saw. That's got almost like a mirrored-like finish. And I did my sister-in-law, his same garment, the Rainbow Black reflective, and it almost. Someone mentioned to me on the road the other day. They said you should call this like chameleon, because it almost has this iridescent rainbow. Chameleon look to it, but it's really unique and different than anything that we offer. And once I applied it for her, he came back to me and said, "Why didn't you make all my shirts like this?" So I got it too. It's a really, really cool material for anybody that's out there. Check that out. It's called Siser Easy Reflective Rainbow Black. But we've got the Easy Weed Electric line. We've got the metal line. We've got 3 different types of glitters. We've got the one with the actual flake. We've got our twinkle and our sparkle materials. Ours are a little bit more embossed. The Aurora is very unique. That's almost like a iridescent twill type of product. We've got pretty much any kind of effect you're looking for. We have a solution for it.
Yeah, I mean, I even remember some of the glow in darks. If you want that color to be that color, or if you want it to be a different color when it's not glowing. I mean, if it's possible, Siser's essentially doing it, is the way I would say.
Well, thank you for mentioning that, because that is a shameless little plug I would like to mention. Last year we just launched, or it might have been the beginning of this year, but we just launched 5 glow-in-the-dark colors, which is very unique to this industry. We have a fantastic Easy Wheat Glow, which it's almost just a white, looks like a white vinyl, but it glows in the dark. And people have been asking us for years. So now we have 5 neon colors that glow in the dark. So I actually made a little skeleton silhouette for my daughter, and she's got to have everything pink, right? So it's neon pink, but it also glows in the dark. So when she, it charges under natural light, and she goes in her bedroom, it's a super cool looking thing. So we're going to see a big uptick on that in the next couple weeks here, we expect, with Halloween coming around the corner. It's a great decoration tool for those that have a cutter and a heat press. If you want to make something unique and fun for your kids or even yourself, highly recommend checking out the Easy Glow selection.
And to kind of wrap this conversation up, Chad, you kind of mentioned it before. It's interesting how we're in an industry where there's such trends. Like there's camo trends, there's tie-dye trends, there's the hand feel, like everything's got, so we're going through trends. Is there any trend that right now that you see kind of around the corner, hey, in 2025, we think this is going to be one of the bigger trends? Or is it, again, these special effects we're really just talking about?
I think the pure HT, for sure. I think people are going to be a little bit more conscious and I don't want to say uncover a little bit of some things, of different decoration techniques that are going on. A lot of those are not even CPSIA. So I mean, if you're going to Disney World and you've got, you're taking the squad and you've got the kids with you, you want something that little one can chew on and not have to worry about it. So we just think that the message, it's really just about the message. We think that pure HT, and again, like I said, the workability of it, we think that that's really going to take off and help. And then in addition to continuing doing what we're doing, right, utilizing what we have, we don't want to be in the business of continuously coming out with more and oversaturating. Let's focus on what we have and educate with those different decoration techniques and methods that some of these bright young minds that we've recently brought on here at Siser can come up with, and share those, and just become unique and be ourselves. And like I said, just give back. And if we're not going to be a fit for you, that is quite just fine. We want to make sure that we set people up for success and not failure. And if our products can somehow make a fit into that, into their world, we're more than happy to provide them.
And where can our viewers go to learn more about Siser's products and resources, Chad?
Absolutely. So again, if anybody is interested in purchasing products and they are unsure where, as opposed to big box retail, we have a network of over 80 different distributors, more for bigger roles, but we also have a network of Siser authorized resellers. We've got about 200 of those, so that's going to be more of your walk-in, just grab a sheet. And if you are interested, we would be more than happy to tell you who's available in your area. If you want to email us at info@siserna.com, we'll be more than happy to point you geographically to the nearest distributor or reseller near you, so you're not paying for shipping, and maybe you can swing in. Maybe we have one that's near you, to where you can go in there and actually see and feel the materials. So again, that's info@siserna.com. And if anybody has just general interest in any of our entire lineup or catalog, they can go to CiserNA as in North America.com. If you go to Siser.com, it'll probably say by Italian website. You're going to get
it'll be Italian, and it's not Siser, it's Siser.
I've got Siser, sister. I've got them all. I've stopped correcting people a long time ago.
I was getting bad at the show.
Siser.
I was correcting people there because I made the mistake a good 10 times before I got it right. So, yeah. Well, hey, what's important, Chad, is when we think Siser, think the best when it comes to HTV, the leader. You guys have been doing it longer, bigger, better. And hey, when has it been a bad thing to buy something made in Italy?
Absolutely.
No. I think of Ferraris and all that good stuff. Quality is what we think of, not cheap stuff. So, Chad, I really appreciate you joining us. Look forward to doing this again. The big takeaway, guys, HTV. It's not going anywhere. It is found its place in the market, and that is still very big. I mean, again, yeah, you have the crafting market, but the high-end retail brands still are using it all the time. And then when your customers want that special effect, or you're trying to upsell them and, take a $2 transaction and turn it into a $10 transaction, this is how you do it. And really glad, Chad, that Siser goes above and beyond to provide that knowledge and resources, because just like I was saying, hey, I'm going to do this. And then you're like, we should do it this way. And so that's great for everybody out there. Take advantage of it. Thank you so much, Chad, for joining us, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks so much, guys. Thank you for having us.
All right. See you guys. Thanks.